Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive into something super important? Today we're tackling U.S. immigration enforcement.
Specifically, how IC operates.
Exactly. We got this YouTube video from one of you guys.
Yeah, it's all about knowing your rights if you ever,
Have one of those encounters.
Right, those encounters with IC.
And let me tell you, this info is like pure gold.
Especially for anyone with DACA.
DACA, TPS.
Adjusting status.
Yeah, or even if you're undocumented.
The main takeaway.
It's powerful.
Super powerful. Your immigration status doesn't just wipe away.
Like it doesn't erase.
Yeah, it doesn't erase your rights here in the U.S.
Okay, so let's break this down.
Let's do it.
First off, who eyes IC? Like, what even gives them the authority to,
Right, to do what they do.
Yeah. The video mentions they're part of Homeland Security, but like...
What does that actually mean, on the ground?
Yeah, on the ground.
So IC stands for Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
Okay.
And they're the arm of Homeland Security that actually enforces immigration laws. So that means apprehending, detaining, and removing people who are suspected of being in the U.S. illegally.
Right.
But, and this is huge, they can't just grab anyone off the street.
Oh, really?
There's a process.
Okay.
There are procedures they have to follow.
Hold on. So you're saying they can't just show up at my door and be like,
right, you're coming with us.
come with us. There has to be legal grounds.
Absolutely, there have to be legal grounds.
Okay.
Think of it this way.
Okay.
IC needs two key documents to actually act.
Right.
First, a notice to appear, or NTA.
Okay. A notice to appear.
It's basically a charging document officially stating why IC believes you're in the country unlawfully.
So it's kind of like if you get served with papers,
Exactly.
you're officially being told.
Hey, we're looking into your status.
Yeah, we're on to you.
Yeah, exactly. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
That NTA alone, it's not enough.
Oh, really?
They also need a warrant signed by a supervisor within IC.
Wow, so they need a warrant too.
Yeah, and without that warrant detaining you, it becomes a whole legal mess.
So it's like a double check system almost.
Yeah, you can think of it like that.
It makes it a lot harder for them to just act impulsively.
For sure, it definitely adds a layer of accountability.
Okay.
And this all ties into a bigger point that the video makes.
Okay.
The Constitution protects everyone in the U.S.,
Everyone.
citizen or not,
Wow.
that Fourth Amendment right, against unreasonable search and seizure.
Yeah.
Applies to IC, too.
The video really hammered that home.
It did.
So even if ICE suspects something, they can't just barge in
Not without a warrant.
if you don't have a warrant.
Yeah, generally no.
Okay.
But like most laws, there are some exceptions.
Of course, there are always exceptions.
Right. The video highlights two big ones.
Okay, let's hear 'em.
First, at the border itself.
Okay, at the border makes sense.
They have more leeway there. And second, if they have reason to believe you're violating immigration laws.
Okay, reason to believe. That seems kind of vague.
It does, right?
Yeah. Couldn't they just twist that
Oh, yeah.
to justify almost anything?
That's where it gets tricky.
Okay.
The video's really clear about this, though.
Right.
Reason to believe can't just be a hunch
Okay.
or based on how someone looks.
Like racial profiling.
Right, exactly.
Got it.
We're talking solid evidence, concrete facts.
Solid evidence.
Yeah.
Okay, so just because someone looks foreign,
Right.
that's not enough to arrest them.
Absolutely not.
Okay, the video had some good examples of this.
It did.
Right.
Yeah, it even cites a Supreme Court ruling
Whoa. Supreme Court.
that backs this up.
Okay.
Arresting someone just based on how they look or their perceived nationality.
Right.
Unconstitutional.
Wow, so there's actual legal precedent behind that.
Yeah.
It's not just a moral argument. And what about, you hear about those workplace raids all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, so is it true that ICE can just storm in
Well, it depends.
based on a tip or suspicion?
Not quite. The video is clear on this too.
Okay.
ICE can't just raid a workplace based on assumptions about the employee's immigration status.
Okay.
They need a valid reason.
Okay, a valid reason like what?
Like a warrant based on probable cause,
Right.
maybe evidence of illegal hiring practices, criminal activity, something like that.
So something more concrete than we think some people here might be undocumented.
Exactly. Much more concrete.
Okay, so let's say worst case scenario, ICE shows up.
Right.
What should someone do? The video had some advice on this too, right?
It did.
Okay, what is it?
First thing, stay calm.
Easy to say, hard to do.
Oh, right? Easier said than done.
Yeah,
But panicking helps no one.
right.
then politely but firmly ask,
Yeah.
do you have a warrant?
Okay, do you have a warrant?
Exact.
Straight up. And if they don't?
If they don't have a warrant,
Yeah.
you are not obligated to answer any questions or let them in.
Wow.
So know your rights.
And what if they do have a warrant?
Even then, you have rights.
Okay.
Ask to see the warrant. Make sure it's legit.
Okay.
Make sure it's properly signed by a judge.
Don't just take their word for it.
Don't just take their word for it.
Yes.
And remember,
Okay.
you always have the right to remain silent.
It's like that classic line, anything you say can and will be used against you.
Exactly.
Either you're a citizen or not.
Doesn't matter.
Better to stay silent and ask for a lawyer.
Always ask for a lawyer.
Right. And that right to an attorney.
It's guaranteed, regardless of your citizenship.
Really. So even if I'm undocumented,
Yep,
I can still ask for a lawyer.
absolutely.
And if I can't afford one.
One will be appointed to you.
Okay, so the bottom line is
Bottom line.
whether IC shows up at your home, work, even in public,
Yeah, anywhere.
you have rights.
You have rights.
And knowing them could literally change.
It could change the entire encounter.
Yeah, how the whole thing goes down.
The video really hits this point home
Yeah.
that knowledge is power, especially with immigration enforcement.
Knowledge is power.
It can be the difference between being treated fairly
Yeah.
and having your rights totally trampled on.
It's almost like having this knowledge, it's a form of self-defense.
It is, it is.
You're equipped to protect yourself
You are
in a system that can feel,
really stacked against you.
yeah, totally.
Yeah,
But I'm curious.
yeah,
The video focuses on IC,
right.
but do these, like, basic rights
Mm-hmm.
apply to any encounter with, like, law enforcement?
Oh, that's a good question.
Like regular police?
For the most part, yes.
Okay.
Your right to remain silent,
Right.
the right to an attorney,
Yeah.
protection from unreasonable searches,
Right?
those are like core constitutional rights.
So those apply across the board.
Across the board.
So whether it's, like, the police, the FBI,
Mm-hmm.
ICE,
All of them.
those fundamental protections are there,
They're there,
regardless of my circumstance.
regardless.
That's actually pretty reassuring.
It is. It speaks to like the foundation of our legal system, the idea that individual liberties matter.
Right.
But it's also a reminder that these rights are constantly being tested.
Yeah, especially in areas as complex as immigration.
Oh, immigration is a whole other beast.
Total.
It's constantly evolving, so.
Yeah, and that's where, like, knowing your rights becomes so important.
It really does.
It's about, like, leveling the playing field. right?
Exactly.
Making sure everyone gets a fair shake.
Yes.
Regardless of their background.
Absolutely.
But the video kind of hints that ICE doesn't always play by the rules. Like that they sometimes overstep.
Right. Overstep their bounds.
Are there, like, any examples of that?
Yes, there are. For instance, the video mentions that even though the Supreme Court has ruled against it, ICE has, in some cases, detained individuals just because of
Really?
their
Yeah.
race or ethnicity.
So they've literally targeted people just because of how they look.
Yes.
That's, like, deeply concerning.
It is concerning.
It makes you realize how important it is to, like, hold these agencies accountable
Absolutely.
to make sure they're actually operated within the bounds of the law.
That they are, yeah.
Accountability is key.
It's key.
And the video gives another example.
Okay.
IC can't just conduct those, like, massive workplace raids.
Those huge raids.
Right.
Based on assumptions about workers' immigration status, there has to be a legitimate reason.
Okay.
Like credible evidence of illegal activity or a warrant based on probable cause.
So they can't just barge into a factory and start rounding everyone up.
Not without a valid reason.
Okay, that's good to know.
It is?
But what about the use of force during, like, an arrest?
Okay.
Does ICE have any, like, limitations on that?
They do, yes. The video mentions that IC is prohibited from using excessive force when making arrests.
Okay.
Like unnecessary violence or intimidation tactics.
Right.
Those are strictly off limits.
Which, again, seems like common sense.
It does.
But we know that, like, abuses do happen.
They do happen.
So what can someone do if their rights are violated by ICE?
Okay, good question.
Is there, like, any recourse?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You can file a complaint with the Department of Homeland Security's Office for Civil Rights and Civil Liberties.
Okay, so I can file a complaint.
You can.
Is there anything else I can do?
You can also seek legal representation
Okay.
to explore your options.
Okay.
There are legal avenues to pursue if you believe you've been wronged.
So it's not a hopeless situation.
Not at all.
There are ways to fight back
There are.
and seek justice.
Yes.
And it's important to remember,
What's that?
You're not alone in this fight.
That's so important to remember.
There are organizations and advocates out there
There are.
dedicated to protecting the rights of immigrants
Absolutely.
and holding ICE accountable.
It's a whole community.
That's really encouraging to hear.
It is.
It shows that even in a system that can feel daunting,
Yeah, it can feel very daunting.
there are people and resources fighting for fairness and justice.
There are, always.
This has been, like, eye-opening.
It is eye-opening stuff.
Honestly, the video you shared
Yeah.
and this discussion, it's made me realize just how crucial it is to, like, understand these issues.
Understand them, yeah.
It's about empowerment, right?
It is. It's all about empowerment.
The more you know about your rights, the better prepared you are to navigate.
This crazy world.
Yeah, this complex world.
The more you can protect yourself.
And those you care about.
Yes.
And that knowledge.
Yeah.
That's where the true power lies.
It really is.
Well said.
Thank you.
This has been a deep dive in the truest sense.
It has.
We've gone way beyond the surface, exploring not just, like, the what of ICE procedures, but the why. It matters so much to understand your rights.
It really does.
But before we wrap up part 1,
Okay.
I'm curious to hear about, like, some specific scenarios
No.
that really illustrate how these rights play out in real life.
Real world examples.
Yeah. Does the video offer any examples like that?
It does, and I think walking through those scenarios
Right.
will really help solidify what we've talked about so far.
So we're going to, like, see it all come together.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, let's take a quick pause here
Okay.
and come back to dive into those real-world examples next.
Sounds good.
We'll be back in a flash.
See you soon. Okay, so, getting into some real world scenarios from the video.
Yeah.
Seeing how these rights actually play out,
Uh-huh.
it can really make it hit home.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I'm ready to see how this all, translates into action.
Let's do it.
Let's start with that scenario of, like, being approached by ICE just because you, quote-unquote, look foreign.
Right.
The video touched on that, right?
Right. It did, and it really emphasized that your appearance alone is never a valid reason for ICEs to,
Detain you or question you.
yeah, detain or question you.
And remember that Supreme Court ruling?
Oh, yeah, huge.
It's unconstitutional
It is.
to arrest someone just based on how they look?
Exactly, or their perceived nationality.
It's crazy to think that even happens.
I know.
But I guess it just, like, shows how important it is to know your rights.
It really does.
It's like that knowledge becomes your shield.
It does. It becomes your shield.
Yeah.
In that situation, just, politely but firmly stating, hey, I know my rights.
You can't detain me
You can't detain me based on how I look.
just because I look foreign.
Exactly.
That can be, like, super powerful.
It's incredibly powerful. It immediately puts them on notice.
Like, hey, I'm informed.
I'm informed. I know what's up.
Yeah, and I'm not going to be easily intimidated.
Exactly. You're not going to be pushed around.
Oh, okay, that's a good point. What about, those workplace raids we hear about?
All the time.
Yeah, all the time. The video mentioned those too.
Yes.
What's the, key takeaway there?
The video makes it super clear that ICE can't just barge into a workplace.
Right.
Just based on, assumptions about employees' immigration status.
Yeah, so no more of those scenes you see in movies where they just
Yeah.
storm in and round everyone up.
Not exactly. They can still conduct raids, but there needs to be a legitimate reason.
Okay, not just a hunch.
Right, not just a hunch or a tip from, a disgruntled employee or something.
Yeah.
And even during a raid, it's important to remember that everyone,
Okay.
regardless of their immigration status,
Uh-huh.
still has rights.
Okay,
Like the right to remain silent,
Uh-huh.
the right to an attorney, all that still applies.
Even in, a high-pressure situation?
Even in a high-pressure situation like a raid,
Right. Yeah.
those constitutional protections apply regardless of the setting. And that's where, staying calm and knowing what to do
Yeah.
can make a world of difference.
It's easy to say stay calm.
I know, right? Much easier said than done.
Oh, especially when you have, ICE AE officers in your workplace?
Right, it's intimidating.
What would you say are, the most important things to remember in that situation?
First and foremost, don't panic.
Okay, don't panic.
Take a deep breath.
Deep breaths.
Try to collect yourself.
Center yourself.
Exactly, and then remember those key points we've been talking about.
Yeah.
You have the right to remain silent.
Well,
You have the right to an attorney.
right.
And you have the right to not consent to a search without a warrant.
So even if it feels like super intimidating,
Yeah,
it's crucial to like assert those rights.
it is. It is.
Make it clear that you understand, like,
You know the rules of the game.
yeah, the rules.
Exactly. It might feel scary,
Uh-huh.
but knowing your rights and being prepared to use them,
Yeah.
that's the best way to protect yourself.
It all comes back to that, like, knowledge is power.
It really does. It really does.
Can be the difference between, like,
Being taken advantage of.
yeah, and standing your ground.
And standing your ground, exactly.
But I want to shift gears a bit
Okay.
and talk about something the video touched on that I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
Due process.
Oh, due process, big one.
Yeah, it mentioned that everyone in the U.S.,
Everyone.
regardless of their citizenship status,
Right.
is entitled to due process.
Yes.
Can you explain what that means, like, in practice?
So due process is this fundamental legal principle.
Okay.
It guarantees fair treatment throughout the legal system.
Okay, fair treatment.
It means that everyone has the right to be heard,
Okay.
the right to present their case, and the right to be protected from like arbitrary or unfair actions
Okay.
by the government.
So even if, like, you're undocumented, you still have certain legal protections.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
The video emphasizes that ICE has to follow specific procedures. Right.
And can't just act on a whim.
They can't just be like, I don't like your face.
Exactly. They can't do that.
You're out of here.
They have to operate within the bounds of the law.
Okay.
And everyone, regardless of their immigration status,
No.
has the right to challenge their actions in court.
So there are like checks and balances in place.
There are, yeah.
That's reassuring to know.
It is.
That IC isn't just like operating with this unchecked power.
It's a reminder that everyone deserves fair treatment under the law,
Yeah.
no matter their background or their circumstances.
Right. But the video also points out that these rights aren't always like respected in practice.
Unfortunately not.
That there have been instances where ICE has like
Overstepped, yeah.
overstepped. Yeah.
Yeah, they've overstepped their bounds.
What are some like examples of that?
So one example the video highlights is detention without probable cause.
Okay.
We talked about the need for a warrant,
Uh-huh.
but there have been cases where people have been detained for long periods
Oh, wow.
without ever being charged with a crime
Really?
or presented with any evidence to justify their detention.
So they're essentially being held without any like real legal justification.
Essentially.
That seems like a clear violation of due process.
It is.
And it's something that like advocates are constantly fighting against.
Absolutely. They're fighting against it all the time.
And the video also mentions access to legal counsel.
Yeah, that's another big one.
Yeah, we know that everyone has the right to an attorney,
Right.
but there have been like instances where ICE has made it really difficult
Very difficult.
for detainees to like contact their lawyers.
Right. Or even denied them access altogether.
That's like super troubling.
Troubling.
It undermines like the entire concept of a fair legal process
It really does. It's like they're trying to stack the deck.
against these individuals.
Exactly. It's a
Yeah.
tactic that's unfortunately been used to like discourage people
Uh-huh.
from fighting their deportation cases and just like pressure them into accepting whatever outcome.
Whatever IC offers, yeah.
This is all like pretty disheartening, honestly.
It is heavy stuff.
It makes you realize how like vulnerable people can be within this system,
Yeah.
especially if they don't, know their rights.
It all goes back to knowing your rights.
Yeah, or how to advocate for themselves.
Exactly. It's a stark reminder of why this knowledge is so crucial.
Right. It's not just about like these abstract legal
It's
concepts.
not just theoretical.
That's about real people's lives
It is.
and their ability to, navigate a system.
Very complex system.
Yeah, that can often feel like stacked against them.
Yeah, absolutely.
This has been like really eye-opening.
I'm glad.
It's one thing to like read about these issues,
Huh?
but to actually like hear you break it down
Yeah.
and explain the real world implications,
Right.
it really like drives home the importance of what we're discussing.
I agree. And I think the more we talk about these issues, the more we can raise awareness
Yeah.
and hopefully push for greater accountability within the system.
Right, totally.
So-
Okay, so we've talked about some like pretty heavy stuff.
We have.
But before we wrap up part 2,
Okay.
I want to circle back to something you said earlier
Uh-huh.
about those scenarios from the video.
Right. The real world examples.
Yeah, you mentioned that they really like illustrate
They can illustrate
how these rights play out.
in real life. Yeah.
Can we like dive into those now?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think they'll provide a great way to see how everything we've been discussing can be applied in these practical situations.
Perfect. So let's take a quick pause here,
Okay.
and we'll come back to explore those scenarios in detail next.
Oh,
Okay, so we're back and ready to get into those real-world scenarios you mentioned.
yeah, let's do it.
I'm really curious to see how these rights actually play out, like in real life.
Me too. I think these examples from the video, they really bring everything into focus.
Okay, so the first scenario that the video tackles is like that situation where ICE approaches someone just because they look foreign.
Right.
We touched on this earlier,
We did.
but I'm like eager to hear how it unfolds in a specific example.
Okay, so imagine this.
Okay.
You're walking down the street, minding your own business,
Right.
and you get stopped by ICE officers.
Okay.
They start asking you questions about your immigration status.
Right.
And it becomes clear that they're targeting you based on your appearance.
Okay.
Maybe because of your skin color or the
Right.
language you're speaking.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Well, based on what we've discussed,
Right.
the first thing is to remember
Mm-hmm.
your appearance alone
Yes.
is not a valid reason for them to detain you or question you.
Exactly. And that's where asserting your rights is so important.
Okay.
You can politely but firmly inform them
Uh-huh.
that you know your rights and that they can't detain you just based on how you look.
Like, I know the law.
I know the law and you're breaking it.
Right.
It's like that knowledge becomes your shield.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
puts them on notice that you're informed
Right.
and you're not going to be intimidated.
I could be pushed around.
Exactly.
And even if they try to pressure you or
Yes.
make you feel uncomfortable,
Yeah.
you don't have to answer their questions.
You don't.
You have the right to remain silent.
100%.
That's a good reminder. It's easy to get flustered
Oh, for sure.
in that kind of situation.
Super stressful.
But knowing your rights can give you the confidence to,
stand your ground.
stand your ground.
Absolutely. And if they continue to press you or try to detain you without a valid reason,
Yeah.
you can always ask for a lawyer.
Right. That's your right.
And it's a powerful one.
It is powerful.
Okay, that's a great example
Yeah.
of how these rights can actually play out in a real encounter. Yep.
What about another scenario?
Okay, let's do another one.
The video also mentioned workplace raids.
Right.
All the time, yeah. Okay, so let's say you're working at a factory.
Okay, I'm at the factory.
Yeah. And suddenly, ICE officers show up. And they announce they're conducting a raid.
Oh, man.
The place is swarming with officers.
Really chaotic.
And everyone's understandably scared
Yeah, for sure.
and confused.
What do you do?
Well, I remember the video emphasized that ICE can't just raid a workplace
Yeah.
based on assumptions.
They need a valid reason.
They need a reason.
Right.
Like a warrant
Warrant.
or evidence of illegal activity.
Exactly. So one of the first things you should do
Okay.
is try to figure out if they have a warrant.
Ask.
Ask, yeah.
Okay.
They're legally obligated to show it to you if you ask.
And if they don't have a warrant?
If they don't have a warrant or they refuse to show it to you,
Ah,
that's a red flag.
okay. Red flag.
That means they might be overstepping their bounds.
Okay. But even if they do have a warrant,
Yeah,
we talked earlier about how everyone still has rights
exactly.
during a raid, right?
They do, absolutely.
So you still have the right to remain silent.
Yes.
You don't have to answer any questions about your immigration status
You don't have to answer anything.
or anything else.
Anything.
And you still have the right to an attorney.
Always.
So even in a crazy, chaotic situation like a raid,
Yeah, it's important to stay calm,
stay calm.
remember your rights,
Yeah.
and don't let fear, dictate your actions.
Don't just blurt stuff out.
Exactly. Knowing your rights can help you navigate the situation
Right.
much more effectively and protect yourself.
You take back some control.
Take back control, yes.
In a situation that can feel really out of control.
Very out of control.
These scenarios are really illuminating.
They are.
They show how understanding these rights isn't just theoretical.
It's not just some abstract thing.
Yeah, it's about having the tools
It's practical.
Yeah.
It's about having the tools to protect yourself.
in real life situations.
Yeah, in the real world.
But beyond those practical applications,
Yeah.
I think this whole discussion has kind of highlighted something bigger.
Okay, what's that?
Something about the principles our country is supposed to stand for.
Right, like fairness and justice.
Fairness and justice.
The idea that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect,
Yeah.
no matter their background or circumstances.
It's about ensuring that the system works for everyone,
Works for everyone. Yeah.
not just a select few.
Absolutely.
And it's about empowering individuals
yeah.
to stand up for their
To
rights,
stand up.
hold those in power accountable.
That's what it's all about.
Well said, and I think that's ultimately what this deep dive has been about.
It really has.
Equipping you with the knowledge
yeah, the knowledge and understand it.
to navigate a really complex system,
Super complex.
to advocate for yourself and others,
Yes.
and to contribute to a more just and equitable society.
That's the goal.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to sum it up.
Thank you.
This has been an incredibly insightful
It has been.
and empowering journey.
It really has.
We've explored the intricacies of ICE procedures, delved into the nuances of immigration law,
Yes.
and most importantly,
Most importantly.
armed ourselves with the knowledge to protect our rights
And the rights of others.
and the rights of others. Yeah.
Yes.
So on that note,
Okay.
I want to thank you for joining me on this incredible deep dive.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
It's been an honor to explore this topic with you
Likewise.
and to share these valuable insights with our listener.
And to our listener,
Yes.
thank you for sharing this important video with us.
Yeah, this was a great one.
We hope this deep dive has empowered you
Uh-huh.
with the knowledge and confidence to, navigate these complex issues and stand up for your rights.
Stand up for your rights
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed.
and never be afraid to fight for what's right.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel US Immigration News. We hope you are doing great. Well, in today's video, we will be talking about key tips for dealing with mass immigration deportation and USA visa issues. In the United States, arrest and detention related to immigration are serious matters, particularly for individuals already residing in the country. Whether you have a DACA or TPS status, are in the process of adjusting your immigration status, or are undocumented, it's crucial to understand your rights under US law. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, part of the Department of Homeland Security, is responsible for apprehending, detaining, and removing individuals who are unlawfully in the US. However, ICE cannot detain or arrest individuals without following specific legal procedures. The process usually begins with a notice to appear, a formal document that charges an individual with being unlawfully present in the US. Along with this document, ICE must issue an administrative warrant which authorizes them to apprehend and detain the individuals. This warrant can only be issued by an ICE supervisor, ensuring that ICE cannot detain individuals without proper legal authority. While there are certain exceptional circumstances where ICE can act without a warrant, such as at the border or under specific reason to believe condition, they still need to operate within the bounds of the law. Due process, which ensures fair legal treatment, is a fundamental right in the US, and the Fourth Amendment specifically protects individuals from unreasonable searches and seizures. This protection applies to all people in the US, including undocumented immigrants. ICE cannot arrest or detain someone without a valid reason, and due process rights ensure that individuals cannot be detained arbitrarily. ICE can only detain someone without a warrant in two main scenarios. First, if they are apprehended at the border while unlawfully entering the US, and second, if ICE has a reasonable belief that the individual is in violation of immigration laws and is likely to evade apprehension. This reason to believe standard is limited and cannot be based merely on appearance or assumption about someone's nationality or immigration status. For example, ICE cannot arrest someone simply because they look like a foreign national. The Supreme Court has ruled that detaining someone based solely on their appearance is unlawful. Additionally, ICE cannot conduct mass workplace raids based on assumption about the immigration status of workers. If ICE does arrest someone without a warrant, their actions must meet the legal standard or reasonable belief. They are also prohibited from using excessive force during arrest, meaning they cannot use unnecessary violence or intimidation in detaining individuals. It is essential to know your rights when interacting with ICE. ICE must have a judicial warrant signed by a judge to enter your home, ask questions, or conduct searches. Without this warrant, they have no legal right to detain or question you, whether at home, work, or in public. Always ask ICE if they have the warrant, and if they don't, you have the right to remain silent and refuse consent for any searches or detention. Understanding and asserting these rights can help ensure that your due to process rights are upheld in any interaction with ICE.